Publisher and author, Victoria Ibrahim Hannah Ibrahim, be filled with all fullness of God. Paul said in Colossians chapter 1, for this reason, we, from the day when we had a word of it, keep on in prayer for you, that you may be full of the knowledge of his purpose, with all wisdom and experience of the Spirit. Paul's saying has become at a high level in Ephesians chapter 3, to know the love of Christ, which passes knowledge, that you might be filled with all fullness of God. Being filled with the knowledge of God's will is a great matter. But when you are filled with all fullness of God is greater than it is immeasurably. In Ephesus, Paul spoke of some of the goals that preceded his highest goal, which is filled with all fullness of God. These are, as mentioned in Ephesians chapter 3, that he would grant you, according for the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might by his Spirit. Christ may dwell in your hearts by faith, may be able to comprehend, to know the love of Christ. Paul spoke of many goals until he reached the glorious goal that is filled with all the fullness of God. This is the highest measure that Paul reached in his prayers. We find that the meaning of measuring fullness is a degree of preparation for the sacred spiritual environment. In it, we live, we move, we are found in the world. And we are filled with the Holy Spirit. And the fullness of God is the maximum by which we raise, advance, and grow in our fullness to the fullness of God, to all the divine richness, and all the richness of attributes, and to all the richness of the divine nature, until believers become partners in the nature of divine holiness. As in 2 Peter chapter 1, according as his divine power has given to us all things that pertain to life, godliness, through knowledge of him that has called us to glory, virtue, where are given to us exceeding great, precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. The limit is unlimited, it is the fullness of God, and this is the measurement, which cannot be measured, the infinite, which self is not able to reach through this measurement to this fullness. Except in two cases, the coming of the Holy Spirit or the reception of the Holy Spirit. Also, this measurement means that there is a high distance in highness and an endless ample top. Even any self in it will rise to holiness and glory as self becomes at a higher level, it rises, and this soul finds a higher field. And so we will grow throughout eternity because we have an infinite boundless because it is infinite. Paul calls for a constant quest to know how much Christ loves human beings until these people grow, because stopping growth leads to spiritual death, which leads to eternal death in hell. The fullness of the Holy Spirit, it is that the heart is not divided between the love of God and any other love. For this, God asked us in Proverbs chapter 23, my son, give me your heart. Let your eyes observe my ways. But how can we be filled with the Holy Spirit? Christ says in Luke chapter 11, give Holy Spirit to those who ask him. Paul says, you must be filled with the Holy Spirit. Explaining how we can fill with the Holy Spirit in Ephesians chapter 5, speaking to yourselves in Psalms, giving thanks, submitting yourselves. That is, what is required is the insistence on filling the Holy Spirit, and whoever seeks, God responds to him, and the fullness of the Holy Spirit begins, God's love and joy begin. And this is the state of heaven, because hymns are the language of heaven, an expression of the state of joy, and the development of a new nature, which the Holy Spirit creates in us.